Regular viewers, they know right here on the Franchise City channel, we fight against dirty tactics that are used to sell franchises that unfortunately are all too frequent. When those tactics end up hurting people financially, it annoys the heck out of me. But when companies direct libelous accusations at me directly and our organization, that takes it to an entirely new level. So Minuteman Press created a rather poorly written page on their website that paints franchise brokers in an extremely negative light. Minuteman Press obviously does not want you to speak with a franchise broker or consultant, and we'll explain why in a moment. But first, let's take a look at the original page from Minuteman Press. So here's the original page. It showed a picture of some faceless franchise consultant discreetly shoving stacks of money into his coat pocket. Minuteman Press then goes on to suggest that they have the truth behind what franchise consultants offer and how using a franchise consultant can cost you dearly. Then they suggest that you might consider working with a franchise consultant, but don't do it. And then they provide the reasons why. Minuteman Press suggests after spending a couple of $1,000s, then poof, anyone can call themselves brokers or franchise consultants. Poof, just like that. They then intimate that using a broker or consultant will result in lack of control over your decisions. They have no long-term interest in your success, and several other fear-mongering scenarios. Of course, Minuteman Press then goes on to suggest that the good news is that you don't even need franchise consultants because you've been led here by your own entrepreneurial spirit to begin this journey, and you can be guided by your own instinct and intellect as you explore blah, 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 blah. Few more negatives on how business brokers are not well versed in the franchising business model. The solution, of course, to avoiding working with all those nasty consultants, of course, calling Minuteman Press Franchising Direct. They then suggest that the majority of franchises are not represented by franchise consultants and ask, would you work with a realtor that could only show you half of the homes available in your target area? And this is even more ridiculous because that's exactly the situation. Every real estate company has their own listings. And let me make clear that Franchise City, our process, includes every franchise, every single franchise in the world, without exception, 100% of franchises into our analysis. Any brand that you want to look at and compare, including Minuteman Press that we'll look at in a minute, we're going to include it in our analysis. Just because a franchise doesn't work with a broker doesn't mean that you can't look at it or compare it with other franchises. So this, amongst everything else, is absolutely false and particularly ridiculous when Minuteman suggests the solution to the broker's lack of selection is to go directly to them, one single franchise. Now, after the barrage of warnings against franchise consultants, the page concludes, unsurprisingly, with a link to their own franchise opportunity website. So the intention here seems clear: to move people away from using a franchise consultant or broker and only to speak with Minuteman Press Franchising. Now, Minuteman Press has gone to great lengths to have this page indexed in Google. So when people look for information on franchise brokers or franchise consultants, or even our company, this page comes up as an option. Now, I contacted Minuteman Press over a year ago, asked them to remove or amend the page. Here's my original request, basically stating, your company has posted an article that casts a disparaging and inaccurate light on franchise consultants and brokers, and it's in poor taste as it bashes franchise consultants only to offer Minuteman Press as the alternative. Now, I received a reply from Mr. Al Sanders saying that they would review it. Now, I looked up our friend Al Sanders, and lo and behold, Al is listed as a franchise broker himself on businessbroker.net. Now, Al is also a member of the IFA, the International Franchising Association, and that's important. Stay tuned for why. Now, they did make some very minor changes, like removing the picture of the person in a suit stuffing stacks of money into his coat, and some very small changes to the text. But it is still up to this day and still very misleading, still bashing franchise consultants, and in my opinion, almost bordering on defamation. But they were very smart in the new iteration because they use words like most franchise consultants and many. So legally, they are likely not culpable because they could simply say they didn't mean Franchise City in their assessment. Now, I'm going to explain why everything they say is wrong in a minute, but first, let's take a little look at the history of Minuteman Press and why they might not want you to speak with a franchise consultant. So, Minuteman Press was sued by the United States government and found liable for violations of federal consumer protection and franchise disclosure laws. The United States government Federal Trade Commission took them to court after multiple complaints of misrepresentation, and it was found that Minuteman Press caused substantial injury to consumers and must pay monetary redress. The court determined that the defendants caused substantial economic injury to many of their current and past Minuteman and Speedy franchisees. So basically, Minuteman Press was not telling the truth about their franchise, falsely representing earnings, and basically a lot of franchisees were hurt financially and otherwise. The court ultimately determined that Minuteman Press International, Speedy, Sinorama, and chairman Roy Titus would pay a $3.47 million judgment as redress to those wronged franchisees. Minuteman Press once boasted an impressive 28% SBA failure rate. So those are people who took out loans to buy a Minuteman Press franchise and then could not pay the loan back. I wonder why that might be. Entrepreneur Magazine lists Minuteman Press in their top 10 brands most likely to have franchisees default on their loans. The Internicola law firm, which is a very prestigious franchising practice, includes Minuteman Press in their top 10 worst franchise brand. Poster Down Under in Australia suggests an incredible 73% failure rate with Minuteman Press, and they go on to list the specific stores and what happened. In their comments, they state, shortly after the conviction, Minuteman Press International expanded its franchise systems to other countries. 16 years later, MPI expanded its brutal franchise system to Canada, Australia, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. The unscrupulous management of MPI persistently practices its unconscionable conduct, unethical and immoral business practices against its franchisees. Minuteman Press has skillfully modified its representation to prospective franchisees after losing the court case. However, in its slick and well-rehearsed presentation, MPI still falsely represents to prospective franchisees that they can expect to earn 33.33% of MPI store sales as profit. MPI consistently contravenes the permanent injunction order. Now keep in mind, when these stores close due to a small liquidated damages clause within the hundreds of pages in franchise agreements, the franchisees can end up owing all of the royalties for the remainder of the contract, even though they had to close their store. There's also numerous complaints online from ex-Minuteman Press franchise owners who feel that they were lied to. This owner said after multiple complaints of how poorly their store was performing, they spoke directly to Roy Titus himself. Nothing happened, and that resulted in the loss of a 20-year job, $75,000 in cash. They lost their home and filed for bankruptcy, total economic loss about $250,000. The wife now suffering depression, and he had a nervous breakdown. Another complaint amongst the many suggests Minuteman Press model is broken, with very specific allegations outlining that their business and operational model is severely flawed. They go on to state, their business is to rotate stores and resell them as many times per year as they can. So if you go broke, that feeds their business. Yet another Minuteman Press ex-owner, Ed Shapiro, states, I'm a former Minuteman Press owner, and I was for 26 years. I sold my store in 2016. Everything mentioned above in the post is accurate. Minuteman Press future is cloudy at best, and what remains of the paper printing market, digital devices are taking over, is being gobbled up by giant printers. I do not recommend investing in a Minuteman Press franchise. Now, there's many other comments if you look over the years relating to their alleged continued misrepresentation and unhappy franchisees. Also keep in mind, franchisees have to be very careful as they can be sued for bringing up anything about their experiences because most franchises have them sign a non-disclosure document. And that's why you very often do not hear of all of the negatives. But by now, I think it becomes fairly obvious why Minuteman Press might not want you anywhere near a franchise consultant, as we, of course, are going to show you all of this information and much more, as well as showing you the Minuteman Press franchise alternatives that have fewer store closures, higher earnings, and no lawsuits brought against them by the U.S. government. And that's actually the entire point behind using a franchise consultant, to have better data and to have more options, which is exactly the opposite of what Minuteman Press suggests. Now, I refuse to stoop quite as low as Minuteman Press to use this venue as a sales pitch to promote our services. But I do feel the need to defend ourselves against these unfounded allegations. So firstly, Franchise City consultants include highly visible professionals, including MBA professors, franchise lawyers, entrepreneurs that have built $100 million a year companies, multi-unit franchise owners, radio show hosts in the business world, and more. These are not people who are going to risk their reputations just to make a few dollars. They are highly experienced. They know what they're talking about. Now, there are multiple testimonials on our website representing just a tiny fraction of the wonderful people we've worked with over the years that trusted us to help them make better informed decisions. Now, to the uninformed buyer, Minuteman Press paints brokers and consultants as a shady underground shadow group who exists only to take your money and then disappear. There might be some bad brokers, as there are in any industry, but I personally know dozens of consultants who are passionate about helping others and improving the industry as a whole. Just last week, Alicia Visconti, CEO of FranServe, she was in Capitol Hill on behalf of the franchising industry. This year's FranServe convention was held in Denver, Colorado, and included hundreds of consultants from all around the country, as well as franchisors. The keynote speaker this year was Robert Crisanti, President and CEO of the International Franchising Association. Now, this is the same association of which our friend Al Sanders is a member. By casting aspersions at consultants and franchise brokers, Minuteman Press is also throwing dirt on the International Franchising Association, whose leader, a few short weeks ago, was the keynote speaker at our event. They also throw dirt on the hundreds of franchises that we proudly work with, and they throw dirt on the hundreds of consultants all around the world. And they throw this dirt for no other reason that I can see than to drive people directly into their own sales funnel. And Minuteman Press, if there is another reason, by all means, let me know. And while most savvy investors are going to see through this tactic, Minuteman Press preys on first-time vulnerable buyers and their fear of the unknown. They make it appear as if you'll be somehow forced into buying a bad franchise. And the reverse is actually true. A good franchise consultant is going to show you multiple options. They're going to help you to understand the differences between franchises. They're going to help you uncover important red flags that you want to watch out for, just like the ones we mentioned with Minuteman Press. They're going to help you compare and understand the earnings claims and show you multiple brands, including any franchises that you want to look at, not just a small sample, as Minuteman Press suggests. And you are the one who chooses the best one for you. We provide many free tools, franchise matching services, and anyone who has gone through our process understands that we provide enhanced data and actually empower buyers to make better informed decisions. The buyer always controls the process, not us. And I'm calling out Minuteman Press that their page is not only in very poor taste, but completely untrue. And unlike Minuteman Press, I'm not going to conclude with a link to our services page or our phone number, but I am going to end by saying be careful out there. Don't rely on what anyone says. Rely on hard data and facts to help you make your investing decisions. Don't just look at Minuteman Press. Look at their competition. I guarantee that you are going to be glad that you did. And consultants and brokers who are watching, or anyone who dislikes this type of behavior from franchises, I encourage you to share this video on your blogs and on your social media channels to hopefully counteract the negative stereotypes and the damage that Minuteman Press has done and chooses to perpetuate. I thank you very much for watching. If you like critical analysis of franchises, please consider liking and subscribing to the nation's most watched franchising channel on YouTube. Thank you.